July 9th already, Anthony. I can't believe it. This month is flying by. It's my greatest fear when it comes to summer that July's going to go too quick.
You know what? Why don't we show everybody our new show open, Glenn?
Let's do it. Yeah, that's right, Anthony. We're talking No Vacancy Live. After 4 months, you think we'd finally come up with a name? We're doing it, finally. Woo.
Well, you know what? And the reason No Vacancy Live, and the reason why is because my brand, Anthony Melchiori, checking in with Anthony and Glenn, my brand is important. My name is important, right? I've worked really hard on it. Your name is important. You worked really hard on it. And we didn't want to really kind of take my brand and your brand and mix them up because you worked so hard on your brand, No Vacancy. I've worked really hard on my Anthony Melchiori brand. We've just decided, well, our brand is still separate, but this is our brand together.
That's right.
And so now we are finally branding the Anthony and Glenn brand.
All right, so this is now the show's forthcoming, forthwith, I should say. It's now No Vacancy Live with Anthony and Glenn, or, you know, if you're feeling generous, Glenn and Anthony, but mostly Anthony and Glenn. So thank you guys for being here today. Man, I'm excited for today because we're gonna have a fun show, I think.
Well, I think so. You know, the gentleman we're meeting today, I actually met for the first time just now off camera, and but his sister is one of my favorite people in the entire universe. And then we realized my second favorite person, sorry, Ruben, is Ruben, and he knows Ruben. And then Brittany is another favorite person, and he knows Brittany, and he knows everybody I know, and he lives not too far from me. So can't wait for you to meet her.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm just doing some math over here. That makes me your 875th favorite person at this point. I'm dropping down quick, Anthony.
Why would you put yourself so high on the list, Glenn?
You know what? Anytime I feel good about myself, you're there to kick me back down. I appreciate that.
So today we're going to be talking about design. We're going to be talking about not only hotel design, but kind of what people are looking for now.
That's right.
COVID and all been kind of cooped up, and our house is becoming more and more important. Whereas our house, we were all so busy, it used to be a house. Our house is now becoming a home, and we're starting to realize that.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about hotel design, residential design, those two coming together, maybe a little restaurant, health and wellness, and all of that stuff together. But before we get into it, I do want to take a moment to apologize for everybody yesterday who was taking part in the hotel reboot thing. We had some technical difficulties. I promise you we will make it good to you, and we will have more information coming soon. But thank you again for your support and not blasting us too hard. You ready to get started, Anthony?
I'm ready, baby.
All right, here we go. Boom, we got two guests here today. We got Mikel Welch, interior designer and TV host, as well as David Tracz. Is that how we pronounce your name?
That works.
All right.
How
would you prefer it pronounced, David?
Trots, like a horse trots.
All right, there we go. So, all right, and David, another confusing question because you just signed on. Is your firm 3877, 3877, 3877? I don't know. I'm confused.
We do that just to throw everybody off. 3877. It's the 38 and 77 of the latitude and longitude of DC. So we try to do something that connected them here.
They are located in Georgetown, and Mikel, though he lives in Queens, is coming at us from a beautiful hotel in Philadelphia. So thank you guys for being here today. We really appreciate it. So let's get started real quick. Mikel, you're in a hotel room today. Tell us what you really love about the design, what you may not like about the design. You don't have to tell us, what hotel it is or who may have designed it. Then we'll get David for some feedback. Of course, it'll be ironic, Anthony, if David actually designed that room, knew it, and Mikel didn't like it. No.
So I'll start with you, Mikel. What is going on right now with people being home, cooped up? You know, what's in front of them is design. It's like, oh, that bathroom. I want to get rid of that bathroom, that kitchen. You know, the house is now either comforting them or annoying them. What do you find?
You know what? Honestly, I would say like the first couple of weeks, I think everybody was just kind of sheltering in place, just trying to, wrap their heads around this new idea. But right after that, my phone started blowing up. My clients were sick and tired of like sitting in front of incomplete projects. And now, you know, they're forced to have new coworkers, which are their children, and they're all like sitting at the dining table. Things. So my world has changed. Like, I think like COVID has like is upping the design industry, because now everybody's focusing on the home because they're like looking at it all day. So it's drastically different, which is a good thing.
What's the one thing that you got to call that surprised you? First of all, let me back up and say I love the fact that you said my coworkers have changed, because I have 3 teenage daughters, and you're right, they're my coworkers. And when I leave the room, they're usually hostile coworkers, so I go back to my studio. So what have you noticed? What is the biggest change that you've noticed in the last 4 or 5 months? Like, what are people really focused on?
I think the biggest thing right now is just like the strategy. Like, honestly, even though I joked about the kids being coworkers, is like, how do we balance like family, school, and work all at the same time? Because like dad is trying to have, you know, a Zoom conference call, and the kids are, you know, trying to do an arts and craft class in the background. So I think it's just like how, because before, like, you know, you didn't, like, maybe you had a home office and one person could fit in there, but now the whole family is kind of forced to be in one area. Right. So now about like space planning, and then having that conversation, you know, everything on like all the TV networks is tear this wall down, open concept. Okay, so now we have all of these big boxes. And, you know, nothing is kind of like compartmentalized. And so now we're all in these big open shells. And it's like, what do we do with noise? And like the design of this wasn't necessarily an open concept. Sounds great, like if it's a party of 2, but now it's like a party of 5 or 6. That open concept isn't so great anymore.
You know, it's funny you say that, because my office is downstairs, and I can't use it because my daughter's bedroom, one of her bedrooms, is down there as well. And my living room, my kitchen is very open, very pretty, and it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite spaces. But I can't do anything in there because no one does. It's funny because no one works in there. No one's ever in the living room or in the kitchen during the day, because there's sound, and it's so true. And if I would have kept it the way I found it, we would have a lot of different spaces down there we can use, but I wouldn't have liked it. But you're right. And I'm stuck up in a place that I never use, you know, ever. And once thank God I have an older house. So the walls are literally like 37 feet wide.
Oh,
so
nice.
you can barely hear anything, but it's so true. I never even thought of that, but it's happening in my house. Unlike my friend Glenn, who has this big mansion in Long Island.
Well, not really. I've got your typical suburban place, but I do, because I only have 2 kids instead of 3. I get in an office all to myself. David, what do you think about what Mikel is saying? How are you seeing the changes right now in home design? Maybe what have you done to deal with some of the space issues you might be having, being that you guys design residential places as well as hotels, restaurants, bars, gyms, all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, it's a little bit crazy these days. You know, I've actually been trying to figure out ways to work in my house in different places. My girlfriend and I kind of rotate between the main floor and the lower level, so we have places to ourselves at various times. You know, it's important to have that own room. But I will say I've been spending a lot of time in places that I'm thinking that I'm going to be renovating sometime in the very near future. So that's kind of sprung me forward on some ideas around doing that next step around the house.
And I would imagine you've seen listen, design, because of all the TV shows, and Mikel, you've been in the forefront of a lot of those shows. You were like one of the pioneers of what was the name of the first show that came out, the design show?
HGTV Design Star.
Right. So what season were you in?
I was season 7. So I was like towards the end of that series.
Right. So you were responsible for the explosion of design. I mean, that show was really responsible. And now I'd imagine people are really doubling down and saying, you know, it used to be something that would be a nice to have, really pretty design, really well. And not pretty design, but just feeling good bones. Like I went through a hotel the other day and I met the general manager, and I walked through, and I already said this to the owner, but me and the general manager looked at each other, and we first time we met, but we've both been in this business 30 years. And I go, wow. And as soon as I said, wow, he goes, good bones, right? Like, yeah, good flow. He goes, yeah, good flow. We're both like, yeah. And design is more than just, it's pretty. It's good flow, good feel, good design. So, David, what are you seeing different in the hotel business and your clients? What are you hearing differently?
I think we're seeing a lot of conversations about how that flow is going to be affected by a lot of this conversation. What's going to happen in the next go round, and a lot of hotels have been moving towards like co-working public spaces and places where people could be communal, and what ripple effects will that have as we build through this process and start to feel out how this virus has any major effect on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, so you're right. In the hospitality industry, everybody was creeping more towards trying to appeal towards that digital nomad, giving folks a place to work that may not be in the office. And we were talking 6 months ago about how traditional offices may be on the way out, which now, for reasons unexpected, seems to be a possibility. But in my heart of hearts, I feel that this is actually going to be an opportunity for hotels because COVID will end at some point. And I do think, though, we are restructuring society now. So, David, you got to be thinking about when you have new hotel projects coming on, how to consider the issues of today while planning for the reality of tomorrow, that this co-located workspace within the hospitality environment might still be something that's viable and maybe just done a little bit differently than we've been doing it now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you're going to be hoteling out of your company, I can see a hotel very easily becoming a second office for people, especially with an opportunity to make things new. So yeah, I can see that being an easy ripple effect into that. In fact, you could start seeing that happening potentially for restaurants as well, where they could leverage, if they're not open in the day parts, they're more of an evening dining place. You could maybe leverage that as well. So I think there's a big opportunity for that.
I had my nephew who's in engineering school. I said, hey, engineer me a hotel room that has a dining room table, a couch, a chair, a smaller bathroom, but I want this. And I went through the whole thing. And in 320 square feet, he really built everything I need if I'm going to kind of shelter in place, if you will, right? I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm not going to go to the restaurant. Like I can bring my snack. I have a little table. I have this. I have that. I have a comfortable chair. And so whereas before you saw all this space in a 400 or 500 square foot suite, now you're going to be forced. And I had him do it on purpose, one, so I can make extra money for himself, but also so I have something that I can show people, even my clients, like this is what you need to put in the hotel room today. So Miguel, let me ask you a question. In the hotel room you're in today, without naming the hotel, what is the thing that you like the most, and what's the thing you like the least? Because it's your workspace.
Okay, so the thing that I like the most, I'm right now like in a suburban neighborhood, so my expectations, like I wasn't expecting like the Four Seasons or like Regis or anything, but the design of it outside of the headboard, I like the design of the space. I like the aesthetics of it. I think they did a decent job with the remodel. Now, I will say there are several things that I wish could change. Right now, like for instance, I'm not having my room serviced, which is a little bit different because now I'm like forced to kind of things surrounding. But I wish I had more contactless things. Like right now, I could so go for an Alexa, like where I could say shut the lights off, so I don't have to touch surfaces. And so, or even like with the sink, I wish I could kind of do like how you have like in kitchen technology where you can kind of just use your elbow and just touch it. I'm wishing I had a lot more of those type of smart devices. So I'm hoping we see a change with that.
Well, it was interesting you said that, because before I would not want to use Alexis in my room, but now I would want to use it. And that's a good point. And it's funny you said about their headboard. It looks like they did a renovation and they ran out of money and left the old headboard.
Right. So my guess is you're in a full service hotel from one of the top 3 major hotel brands.
Yes, you are absolutely.
Yeah, I could tell by the design of the particular room and the amenities that I could spy on.
Oh, I know I'm going to name the hotel. I'm going to name the brand and see if I'm right. It's a Hilton.
Ooh, you lost. You didn't win the prize today.
All right, but to be fair, I saw a great presentation where a person put up a room from each of the top 3 major hotel companies and they all look pretty much exactly the same. So it was very difficult to tell which one was which. Good enough that I could tell I was in a full service hotel, but even though you're probably in a Marriott, you can't say that is definitively a Marriott.
You know, like, I don't mind the chair. Like, the chair, like, it has a nice little modern effect. I've stayed at worse. So this isn't bad. Because, like, if I were downtown, my expectation would be a little bit higher. But considering where I'm, like, in the middle of nowhere, like, this is good living.
Right.
Yeah. All right, David, let me ask you this question when it comes to hotel rooms. We talked a little bit about work, right? So bringing that to the next level, one of the ways that hoteliers have been able to find some successes, singles, doubles, not home runs in this recent go round, has been offering up hotel rooms for work, right? Does this mean finally we could get rid of that whole notion of rooms without desks as the cool thing? Because I'm a big desk guy. I need my desk. I'm hoping this is a sea change back to more productivity within the room for older people.
Same. I think absolutely. I mean, that was actually, I had heard that as a comment a couple of years ago, and my first reaction was, it's going to be impossible to remove the desk, because every time I go to a hotel, the first thing I do is set my computer up and start getting ready to work.
Right.
So I completely agree with that. It's and actually, I think it's nice to have a social space in the lobby, but it's better to have a workspace potentially in the room. So I think it's most important. There's going to be times where you're going to have private conversations when you're working. So having a space to do that in the room is a great place to do that.
Yeah, and I think, I haven't really found a multifunctional desk or piece of furniture in a room that I really, really like. I want to be able to use a desk that when I'm watching TV and eating, when I'm working, when maybe I'm meeting in my room, like I really haven't met a room or a piece of furniture that I really enjoy from that perspective. I usually have to pull over the end table for my dinner, or I have to like take all the crap off the desk, because like the desk I'm working on now, there's nothing on my desk. I don't like anything on my desk when I work. There's not been anything that really is functional. And even when I come in and I put my luggage, like I usually have to knock everything off of something to put my luggage on top of something, because I like unpacking. I don't like putting anything on the floor. So I don't think anyone, at least I haven't found a piece of furniture or hotel design that does it perfectly. Mikel, have you found anything or that you like, or a piece of furniture or a brand that kind of does the flow well?
I would say of any of the brands. Now you got to remember also, I'm going to come from a design perspective. And so if the aesthetics are right and, you have coupe wine glasses or glasses, that's going to kind of woo me in. But I would say the Soho House brand always does me right. I feel like they have everything that I need, and they're kind of full service, but I just like the aesthetic. The rooms typically flow. And yeah, Soho House brand kind of does it.
I've never been to the Soho. I've been there to have a drink in New York, but I've never been to the room.
Well, I would say you should go, but you're going to critique it in it. Actually, I don't want you to go, because you're going to do things that I don't. Yeah. Matter of fact, don't even go.
So you know Anthony pretty well then.
Yeah, don't even think about it.
All right, so talking about what's going on in hotel rooms these days, one great point someone is talking. Our good friend Daniel, he just wants to get rid of his carpet in the room. Mikel, I bet you have like 3 feet in your room with the LVT flooring over there before going to the other part of the room. David, I'm a big fan of LVT floors. I actually did a room down at my house to get rid of the carpet because of that. How do you see that now? It was a trend that I think was there in the marketplace with COVID scenarios. How do you see that perhaps affecting the way that we do flooring in hotels?
Oh man, from a cleanliness standpoint, I can see that being a huge advantage for LVT to move in that direction. I think everybody has a perception when they get to a guest room, they want it to feel clean. And LVT, as long as you've kept everything off of the floor and kept it clean, then it will feel clean. Carpet, on the other hand, can sometimes feel a little bit dicey. But I think it's also going to be a little bit on the brands to describe what they're doing in every room to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with what's going on.
Most of them are starting to head in that way anyway, because Mikel, would you prefer when you're designing either a hotel space or a residential space, deal with floors that are wood floors or LVT floors, depending on the price point, or do you want to use carpet?
You know what? I'm all about the hardwood floors. I think especially now, moving into a situation with COVID, I think like now we've got to have things that can like withstand like commercial grade cleaning materials and bleaches and solvents, things that, you know, give, like kind of David said, that essence of clean. And so I'm kind of leaning towards that. I always feel like, especially in a residential space on the opposite side, you can always lay rugs. Like rugs kind of, you know,
Right.
the same purpose as the carpet. So I'd much rather have a vinyl or either a hardwood, hands down. Anytime.
Yeah, carpet's like bell bottoms. It was really, really cool, but hopefully it never comes back.
I'm with you on that.
I'm going back to 1972 shag carpet in my entire house.
Well, think about that. Think about shag carpet, because I go into hotels, right, on the show, and I still find that shag carpet in the hotel room. Think about we went into one hotel, and you may remember, Glenn, in Woodstock.
Yes, and I remember that.
The gentleman, what he does for a living is he finds mold. That's what he does for a living. So he has a whole little kit. And he goes in and he wears his mask and his glasses, and he literally looked at me. He goes, "I've never found this much mold in carpet before." He was so excited. He was so excited, like he won the world record of mold.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
Hey, Mikel, I just told you we're working on something, and
is there a pass button?
Because we're working on something. That's all I'll say. And I want to see maybe down the road you'll be interested in working with me. And but if you don't like mold and you don't like dirty carpets, you may not want to be involved.
Yeah, unless you are going for good television reactions, you might not want me, because I'm kind of like off the cuff, and if it's not right, I'm gonna call it out.
Well, like I was saying before, you know, I work with Mikel's sister Nicole, who's my producer, and she was literally. I just love that woman to death. I would kill for that woman. I love her to death, and her facial reactions are incredible. Like I was telling you, we're in Sicily and there was a problem with her and the director, and I said, "All right, I'll take care of it." And she just looked at me like, "I got this." And I was like, she didn't have to say a word. She just looked at me. So yeah, I would love those facial expressions.
Yeah, well, I will see. She has the facial expressions. I have the mouth. So I'm being good because I'm a family audience, but our F-bombs will come out of my mouth.
Yeah, she's what do you call it? She's very quiet but fierce as hell.
Yeah, I'm not quiet.
Hey, we got a couple of questions from the audience, all dealing with this LVT stuff. David, how do you see it maybe replacing ceramic in the bathrooms? And then also, what about hotel hallways?
Yeah, I mean, I think the worry is always going to be sound for the hallways.
Right.
The clickety clack from people walking down the hallway to the guest room. So it creates a little bit of a challenge with echo and that kind of thing. But in the restrooms, you know, it's something that we've tried a couple of times. It's always a question of water and LVT and how that works in the long term. So I think that's one thing that we're kind of waiting to sort of see how that all balances out as time goes on. But we've definitely been doing it, and I think most of the LVT manufacturers feel comfortable using it that way. So I think it's great. It's a great thing to certainly try, and I agree with the eliminating the grout lines especially for cleanliness.
So Mikel, what do you think 5 years from now? Let's talk about residential for a second. Okay. What do you think? Like we knew, like in the 70s, we know what a kitchen looked like. We knew what a living room looked like. The 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. In the 2000s, like you said, in the 90s, 2000s, we saw these open floor plans. What do you think, and because of COVID, do you think it's going to have long-lasting effect? And will you see less open floor plans? What do you think the long-lasting effect is for residential specifically design, if any?
I think we're going to have two things. I think with like builders, we will begin to see more defined spaces just so we can keep things separated. I think we might begin to see furniture that's a little more compatible for, you know, family, like things, maybe they're like additional pullouts for desk surfaces. But I also think the other thing that's probably going to come out of this thing is just the shift in terms of the design of furniture as a whole. Like, I don't think we're going to see as many sofas where people have to kind of like be sitting next to each other. I think it's going to be more singular, isolated, like a singular chair, a club chair, a side chair. So I think it's going to be a lot more of singular pieces as opposed to things that are going to be more tight knit, at least from the commercial side of things.
And that's interesting, because even like if I had a house that I could entertain in, and I'd have these big couches that we all hung out in, I'd have a couch for where when I'm not entertaining me and my family, but then in thinking I would probably have separate chairs. So when I do have friends over, it's a little bit separate. I never thought of that. David, what do you think?
I think the same thing, actually. I think both from hotel and the restaurant perspective. I think a lot of times when people are designing on the restaurant side, they're always trying to create small nooks and places and spaces where things can happen. So I can see that continuing on the restaurant side, where people are creating more and more small nooks where groups of 2 to 4 can get together, as well as some larger ones where groups of maybe 6 or 8 can get together too.
And that kind of plays on some of the trends anyway that we've been seeing, right? So it really feels like as much things are going to be different, the more they seem to be coming back to the same old type of things with where we seem to have been headed anyway. We've just got to be a little bit more creative. David, I think a great idea would be individual cones of silence for your group, so you could and get smart, so they could just come down with a big plastic barrier and wrap around you.
Have you seen what's going on around on LinkedIn, where they have these big plastic barriers going over people, like for teachers to teach their children? Did you see that?
No, so it's kind of like what I'm thinking about.
It sounds like it's the code of silence.
It literally stressed me out. Like, I was like, no. I don't want to see my daughter's teacher. Well, my daughter's in college now, but I don't want to see people walking around with these big bubbles around them. It really literally took my breath away. It made me sick.
All right, so one show note, Mike McMahon, says manufacturers make sound barriers called Whisper Step, and many lines are waterproof. Also, I'd like to add, I know our good friends at Porcelanosa have got this great undercoating, so you could click clock and stuff like that, and it absorbs a lot of the sounds. That's mostly for guest rooms. I'm thinking, David, what you're saying about the hallways is because there's so much more frequent traffic, it's a very different animal than a person occasionally walking around their room, right?
Right, 100%. And guest room doors are notoriously, depending on how well the hotel's been renovated in the past, they're notorious leak spots.
So Anthony, we are getting so many design-related questions today. This is turning out to be really.
Well, Glenn, just so you know, I don't know if you're aware, but this is a design show. That probably makes sense, right?
Oh, I was wondering what was going on. All right, can you incorporate design into wood and LVT floors?
Question.
Of course you can, Mikel. How?
Well, I think the main thing is just I think in terms of like incorporating things, it's just the thought process, right? I think it's a combination of thinking about what is realistic, what is durable, and what's aesthetically pleasing. I think it's when you have the marriage of all three of those things, that's when you have good design that makes sense. I think it's because I think a lot of times we have things that maybe they work, because they're commercial grade or whatever, but maybe they don't look great. And that's where we run into problems. But when you have the designer and the engineer kind of meeting each other, kind of like how Anthony had his nephew, help him design that room. I think it's that fusion of both, and both meetings of the minds sitting down together. And that's when magic happens.
So let me ask you a question, and this is a little bit off on the tangent, but I'm really curious. You designed for Steve Harvey. You have a lot of high profile clients, but Steve Harvey specifically, when you designed his dressing room, tell me the one thing where you walked away going, okay, Steve, I don't know how we're going to do that, and I don't agree with it, but all right, we'll figure it out. What were the biggest challenges of working with someone like Steve Harvey, who's I would imagine is a very nice guy, but very specific what he wants?
Actually, he's very hands off. He's very trusting. He's one of those kind of people. He's like, this is what I want. I remember a very distinct conversation. I asked him, could he kind of give me a couple of stories he likes? And he said, hey, listen, I'm a comedian. I wouldn't ask you to give me advice on jokes. So I'm going to let you just do it. I would say the craziest thing that he asked me to do was in his walls. We worked with a cabinetry company because he wanted ebony macassar walls. So it kind of would be like somebody wanting this bed behind me with wood paneling that was lacquered. And so I had to work with a cabinetry company in order to create the paneling for the walls. I was nervous because he does his radio show there, so I was worried about echoes, but we made it work. That's the craziest thing I've ever been asked to create were lacquered wood panel walls, but it looked good and it worked.
So when you walked in for the first time and you saw her, what was his reaction?
Oh gosh, he's like, I want these at my house. Like, I mean, he's now, I will say this, like, he is over the top with, like, if he likes it, he likes it. If he hates it, actually, he's really nice about deliver. He'll have somebody else deliver a message if he hates it. But you'll know if he loves it. Right. Believe it or not, that man is really nice. Like, he doesn't like to tell you he doesn't like something. I'll find out from, like, 3 other people later. But no, he was just ecstatic. You know, I think a lot of times, especially like working with celebrities, people promise them the world and then they're often let down because, you know, a lot of people overpromise just because they want the job. But he was really excited. I mean, I've worked with him now for the past like 5 years, and he's like one of my best clients. As a matter of fact, I talked to him 2 weeks ago about a project in his new home. So I like him.
Right. Well, and that's what everybody around him tells me. He's very nice, and maybe people don't think that, but that he is very nice. But I was just interested in working with such a high, he's Steve Harvey, right? He's worked really, really hard to get there. And that he gave you that. Once he gave you that, just real quick, when he gave you that, okay, you're not a comedian. I'm not going to ask you for jokes. How'd you feel soon? Didn't you feel even more like double down on wanting to please him and make him happy?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of worse. And I'm sure David would kind of agree as well. Like when your client doesn't give you any type of direction, that is the most difficult because you're trying to interpret something that's in their head. And without little direction, it's kind of like, you know, shooting at the stars. I mean, you don't really know. So, yes, it was definitely much difficult, but the payoff was even better in the end. You know, I've had some people, like I work with, I do set design. So I worked with Faith Hill 2 years ago, and she was the exact opposite. Like we literally shut down Mitchell Gold, or we went like 2 hours before they opened, and she had like basically like an encyclopedia worth of like renderings and Pinterest pictures. Actually, sometimes that part can be annoying because it'll take much longer. Right. But she knew exactly what she wanted. So it made part of the process easier, but also because she knew what she wanted, I needed to make sure I gave her that. Whereas with Steve Harvey, he didn't really have an expectation, so I could be a little more flexible. So it has its pros and its cons.
Right. So David, let's throw that over to you. How do you deal with owners and folks that are requesting your services when it comes to hotels or restaurants or whatever, when they just get too caught up maybe in the minutia and really have lost track of creating something and causing you a lot more trouble?
That never happens. I think our intent a lot of times is just to try and have a conversation about what it is they want to get to and drill down on the specifics around that. And, you know, try to open them up, maybe show options, because a lot of times, sometimes people get that specific because they've seen something that they envision themselves in, and you try to work around what that means and what parts of that are so important, what parts of it aren't important, and then see if you can kind of whittle those pieces away so that you can get to what is truly driving them to that. I think that's actually a great sort of design intent piece, is whittling some of those things away. And to the point of having somebody come in with no options and say, I need you guys to create. That's a challenge, really. That's like somebody throwing down the gauntlet, being like, how do I make this as best as I possibly can? And then it's the world is your oyster. Go from one end to the other and try to open that up to what the possibilities could be. You know, I remember it's kind of cool in both ways.
I remember telling one designer, I don't want clutter, but I want warmth. And then she goes, got it. And walked away, did exactly what I wanted. And it felt great. And I asked another designer, I told another designer the exact same thing. And she's like, what does that mean? And I knew I had the wrong designer.
Yes. They've got to speak your design language. They've got to speak your language.
Right. Like
100%.
Like I looked at your site and I really like Mikel, and I really like your design palette. Like I look at other designers and I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it and respect it, but I wouldn't want that in my office or my house. I looked at yours and I'm like, I would literally look at him and go, here, take my house. I'm going on vacation. See you in a month.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it.
But so I really think, like you said, it's up to the designer to understand the language.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't talk design language. I talk Anthony language. And my language is, I want warmth with no clutter. Figure it out. I like clean lines. That's it. What I would say is, look at my ties and my suits. That's how I want to live. Clean and a little bit touch of color. That's it.
Hey, that's easy.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
so I've got
sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. All right. I've got a question about hotel rooms and a couple of things that annoy me. One in particular, I've been searching for an answer for this for many, many years, David. Maybe you can help me out here with this one. Why, whenever I'm in public spaces and in hotels and stuff like that, and I go into the bathroom, we can't get the faucet to come out more than an inch from the side of the sink, and I'm stuck banging my hands against porcelain, and nobody can get that right. Why? It makes me feel that, and why can't a lot of designers get a chair that's actually the right height for the desk? It seems like two very simple things that I'm confused about. Maybe you could help clarify what's going on here.
I completely agree. I can't tell you how many hotels and restaurants I've sat down. Actually, it's not just the chair and the desk, where I've sat down at the bar and I've been like 2 inches too low or 2 inches too high.
Right.
And, I don't know the answers to those questions, but it's a simple thing to figure out the depth of the sink and how far off the wall it is and how far the faucet needs to reach to get your hands underneath it.
Yeah.
Especially now with automatic faucets, where you have to like clap in front of them sometimes to make sure they work. Get some space there. So yeah, it's a challenge.
So my pet peeve, Mikel, if this is what I want to know, and only 1 or 2 hotels in my lifetime have gotten it right. And the Algonquin on their last renovation actually got it right. Okay. The lighting in the effing bathroom. That doesn't seem too difficult. Why can't we get that right? And is there a secret of getting it right?
Well, I think the reason that most of them don't get it right is because they haven't been updated. You know, I think most hotels that, especially in your situation, you're walking into hotels that are in dire need of your help. Like, you know, they just
I'm working for 5-star hotels that were just built and their lighting hasn't been right.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Tell me the last time you walked into a bathroom and you found spectacular lighting.
When I went to the Soho House, I told you, like
Anthony, I think all hotel bathroom lighting is spectacular because it's so dark I don't have to look at myself. So it makes me feel really good about stuff. Here's a good question. What do you find more challenging, having creative control or designing your client's specifics?
Creative control or client specific? I think for me, it's the client specific. Most of my clients trust me, so they give me the creative control. It's when they get so specific and it's like, we've come up with the design, and then it's typically the woman who loves Pinterest and she's like, oh my gosh, I found this. And it's like, stop finding things. Like they trust you, but they get excited because they like, oh, you're like my friend who likes to go shopping, or they're like, oh, can I come with you? No, you cannot. So that's the more difficult portion of it.
That's funny. What was the biggest project, like a residential project you worked on? And you don't have to be specific about who or whatever. That
unless they were a horrible celebrity and you want to out them.
No.
Yeah, you know what?
Open door.
You wouldn't be on TV too long if you did that.
Yeah, right.
Was there one project that you took over that you just didn't know which way was up, and then you just spent a lot of time? Go ahead.
Yes, hands down, it will go down in history. I actually, through Steve Harvey, through his manager, I got to work with, I won't say who, but I got to work with one of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And
they're also delightful. How could you'd have had a problem?
No, she was delightful.
I'm sure.
The project, it was a 5,000 square foot basement. Ooh. So and that's the basement. So we had to completely deck it out. And so we had a spa, we had a theater, we had a wine bar, we had a man cave, she had a gym, a sitting room, and we even put a little mini nightclub in the basement. So that project, it was filmed. And so, you know how that is with cameras and trying to like, gosh, we had to change contractors so many times. That was difficult. I didn't know how I was going to pull that one off. So 5,000 square foot basement, it kicked my butt. I got it done, but I didn't think I was going to. We had some drama on television, but we got it done.
But you know what's great about these shows, and again, being on a show for 9 years almost, the drama, you take pressure, you take things that seem insurmountable, and you take someone that has a real brand, like you have a brand. What I mean is you have a personality, and your personality, you ain't changing for nobody.
No.
And you take a person like that and you put them under pressure with a small budget with TV cameras, and it's magic.
Yes. I mean, I don't even think like, and I'm sure David would agree, like, even like you might not have TV cameras following you, but naturally you could, just because there's something going to go wrong.
And you know what's good? I'm just going to make a note for all those people out there that want to be on TV. Mikel just did something. He's did it twice. He's done it twice. And I want you to really understand the nuance of someone so good and so professional. He's thrown it to David twice because he's taken some time and he feels like maybe he's taking a little bit too much of the time and he wants to be respectful. And he threw it to his partner on the show.
That sounds like a great lesson for you, Anthony.
And that's, yes, I learned that lesson, but I break through that. I break through the barrier anyway, and I keep going. But my point is that little nuance, and that's what like, if I'm working with a designer and that designer is throwing it to their contractor, or throwing it to me, or throwing it to even a producer off camera and sharing that limelight, that's kind of how you build a brand and people want to be around you. So just FYI, one, I think it's a good learning lesson. And two, thank you for being so generous.
Number three, David, what is the number one thing the hotel guest room that will pay for itself, but is rarely changed out? Could that even be a thing?
I don't know. That's a very tough question. I don't know what I don't know the answer.
Then let me ask you this one.
It may be a functional chair that maybe has something that sort of works as a desk potentially.
Right.
Anthony might have an idea.
Pick me.
Yeah, I would really like to see more back chairs.
Mikel, what do you think? And then I have my answer.
Ask that question one more time. I want to make sure I answer this right.
Pressure's on, Mikel. Did he just freeze?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh,
he said no. He asked.
Ask that one more time. I want to say it one more time just so I can make sure I give the right answer.
Anthony?
He's not understanding what you're saying. So, Mikel, the question was, Glenn, what he's asking.
I'll bring up Gary's question.
Repeat the question.
What is the number one thing in a hotel guest room that will pay for itself but is rarely changed out?
Will pay for itself. That's a tough question.
I know. Gary, you're killing us today.
I got it.
Anthony, he knows it all.
Anthony's got an answer.
For us.
That I know it all because we were all taught it by one gentleman that you may remember his name, Glenn. And I will just say, it's the bed, stupid.
Gary says it's the toilet.
The heavenly bed. Remember the heavenly bed?
True.
Well, that definitely changed everything.
Right, and it paid dividends. Yep. It's the one thing that everybody took never thought about. We spend most of our time in the room, in the bed. And then who was our friend that over at
Barry Sternlicht? I think it was you guys are gonna correct me, but it was like 1996, 97-ish.
100%.
All of a sudden somebody realized, hey, the bed might be an important thing to focus on in the hotel room. So that is when we started to see a great, comfortable bed with white sheets and linens that started to get rid of the overall floral bedspread look that was part of every single hotel in the 70s and 80s.
And he did a marketing campaign, if you remember, in New York, in Times Square, and just put the beds in Times Square. And again, that's a really good example of things that people weren't paying attention to that paid dividends. And the Heavenly Bed launched that brand, literally launched the brand.
Yep. And it made everybody else be also ran behind us. And of course, Heavenly Bed was for Westin, and then they used the same bed with a different version and a different name for the W hotels.
Right, and then there were another thing that people again didn't really pay attention to, but really paid dividends when they went to Ascent. I remember being in New York Times. I was reading New York Times on Sunday, and what fell out of the middle of the New York Times was this scent, and it said the Westin scent. I was like, a hotel with a scent? Ridiculous. I smelled it, and then I called that company that did that scent to do scents all around the Nickelodeon Hotel. So when you walked around the Nickelodeon Hotel, if you went to the theater, you smell popcorn. If you went to my office, you smell chocolate. If you went to the front lobby, you smell something else. And it was the first time that scent mattered in the hotel outside of dirty carpet smell.
I agree. Yeah. There's a iconic hotel in Chicago. I can't think of it right now, but every time we went to the hotel, it had that aura, that smell, and I asked, and they told me that Le Labo is like a popular candle scent, and they have a spray and they pump it through the vent. I'm like, that's genius.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it all started with the Westin Hotel. And so those are the things, and I really think in design, you if you look at it and you take those things that people take for granted and you make it kind of easier and just more comfortable for them, it surprises everyone.
All right, so Gary is insisting that you're wrong, Anthony. He says the toilet will pay the hotel over $50,000 per year in water and sewer charges. That is if you switch out ones that are typically 10 years.
And I agree with you, Gary, and you're a big fan of the show, and I would never disrespect you by disagreeing, but I'm going to disagree with you because that bed made Westin billions.
Oh, yeah.
And not from the bed, from the branding.
So let me see if I could broker a peace accord here. A peace accord, not a pizza accord. A peace accord between you and Gary. Let's say that, Anthony, you're right for one particular hotel brand that revolutionized and energized the hotel brand, but other brands weren't able to really recapture that magic or spirit. But for the average hotelier out there, a toilet today, replacing it will do what the Heavenly Bed did for Westin all those years ago. How's that sound?
If it's not a Japanese toilet, I don't want any part of it.
Oh man, I use back when life was normal. I got a chance to use that Toto toilet when we were over at Aria, which, by the way, has an incredible signature scent and makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And Mikel, are people asking for that Japanese toilet that takes care of business? Are they asking more in residential homes?
No, it's rare that I have people ask for it. Like, I think the average homeowner, they don't want that. You know, every now and then I'll get a request for that, or even like a fancy bidet. But I think on an average, people just want a basic toilet.
If you renovate my house, I want them everywhere.
Yeah. I wanted
it as my desk chair.
That's because you're extra.
David, my guess is those Toto toilets are really still the purview of very high-end luxury suites, not your average everyday type of room.
I would agree. I actually think that most of the toilets nowadays are going in the direction of low consumption, but good performance toilets.
As a matter of fact, I've seen in the last few years a real rise here in the United States of toilets like they have in Europe with the two different buttons on top, the number one and the number 2 button over there. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, got them in my house.
So now that we're talking about number 1 and number 2, try to wrap it up on that note.
No, I want to go. I got another thing. Producer Jeff is dying to know about barn doors on bathrooms. I think, for example, the Virgin Hotel Chicago has done a great job at separating one part of the room from the other with the barn door. Yeah. And I like in concept the idea of the barn door for older hotels for the bathroom, so you don't have to open the door and that takes up the entire space of the bathroom. But me personally, I feel that there's a lack of privacy with those barn doors. How do you come down on them? What's the trend at? How are you feeling about them?
Same. Privacy is a challenge with barn doors in general. I like the functionality, like you're suggesting.
And they look cool.
It doesn't get in the swing. They look cool. I think barn doors do a great job on showers for sure. But it is a divider for the bathroom. It's not the greatest. Although there are times, like you said, where you can use it to separate suites and make it feel like a suite when it's really not that large. And I think it's got a good dramatic effect, but from a functionality standpoint, it's not fantastic.
Right, and at the
but I do like a good pocket door for things like that.
Yeah, right. And I like what Virgin. The purpose of the barn door in the room in the Virgin is to separate the sleeping area from the bathroom foyer area. It's great for blocking sound from the hallway. It's an extra layer of protection. Plus, what they use it for is if somebody's going to bring in food, they could leave it there and not disturb you. So I think they use it in an interesting way. Not a big fan of in the bathroom. But Mikel, how about in residential? I think it's probably still pretty cool to put into
Yeah.
residential places.
Well, I think if it's in those pass-through areas, like a living room, going to a dining room, yes. I am in agreement when it comes time to hotels, because I've recently stayed at a hotel. It's a newer hotel, but in Nashville. And I was by myself, but if I weren't, that would have been a problem. So that's going to be a no for me.
All right, good. All right, I'm glad
Picked
that
up
we agree.
So before we wrap it up, and David, you can hang out for this, but I really want to know, Mikel, I'm gonna kind of lob you the ball and then you hit it.
Okay.
So if you're in an environment that just doesn't feel right because maybe something happened in that house, how do you change that aura? And is there a TV show that you may be doing?
Maybe someone gets murdered and you want to flip the house and you call it Murder Flip House.
So Mikel, talk about your show.
Yes. So I have a new show. It's called Murder House Flip. It's on Quibi Network, which is actually an app on your phone. Essentially, myself and my co-host Joelle, we go to homes where iconic murders happen. We don't just take basic murders. It's got to be really iconic. And we help homeowners who purchased these homes and just didn't know a murder took place. So we're talking about like 1993, 94, pre-Google. So you purchased this home, you didn't know what happened because unless you looked on microfiche, you didn't know.
Right.
And you get a knock on the door and the neighbors are like, hey, you got the Johnson house. And you're like, what is the Johnson house? And that's when you find out that someone was murdered in your home. So,
oh, you didn't know this house was the basis for the Amityville horror movie.
There you go. So, but then we also have the opposite of that. You have those people who are like, oh, you know what? The houses on this block are worth $100,000, but you know what? Ours is only selling for $650. We're gonna go with it. Well, something's not right with that house, and they like take a risk and a chance on it. But our goal is like, this is the first time I've actually worked on a show where it wasn't just about, as Anthony knows, like the demo. It wasn't about like they fit the demographic. They look good on camera. This was really about helping people who were genuinely affected by something. And so this is the first time I actually saw design being used as like a form of therapy because these people are traumatized. And so we have to gut these rooms. Gut is probably not a good word, but we have to take everything out of the rooms and rebuild them so that they look drastically different when they walk.
So was there ever a space you were in, you were like,
Every single one. There wasn't one. Every single one. I mean, honestly, between you and I and the rest of the world watching, what really kept me there was the paycheck. I just said, okay, listen, get the check. Because those houses, there was, I felt something. In one of the opening scenes, day one, we filmed at night. And I'm like, you people are crazy. And I'm standing with my co-host who I've met for all of 20 minutes. And I say, you're not going to leave me upstairs in this haunted house. And I ran down the stairs.
I remember the scene. I saw it in the intro, and it said, "Usually ladies first, but you ain't leaving me."
No, and that was a real moment. That was not that wasn't produced. That was just, I'm getting the heck up out of here.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And first of all, I want to talk real quick for the older people like myself. What Quibi is. Quibi is going to be the biggest. It's taking over the world. Talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so Quibi is called. It stands for Quick Bites, and it's kind of weird right now because we're in the middle of COVID. But all of the shows are broken up into 5 to 8 minute intervals. So they're like little quick hits. So let's say you're in the grocery store and there's a long checkout line. Then you view it then. If you're sitting and you're waiting at the DMV and that line is horrendous, or at the post office, it was designed so you could watch something in a short amount of time that didn't take too much out of you. So you could watch a couple of episodes. So that's what Quick Bites is. It's all about big screen TV that's chunked down into smaller portions for you to digest instantly.
Be careful the way you use the word digest in there. Mikel, do you end all of your episodes with that little old lady from Poltergeist coming in saying, "This house is clean"?
We don't do that, but we do Sage. We go through with Sage, and
when they first called you and said, "Hey, we're going to pitch you the show," tell me what was going through your mind.
Oh, hell no. It's what I thought. When my manager called me, I really thought he was just punking me. And I was just like, whatever, I'll call you later. And he's like, no, seriously, I need you to go to this audition And until they bought my flight, I didn't think that this was a real show. And then when I got on the plane, I'm like, you all are serious? Like, this is not like, it's not like an article out of the Onion. I'm like, no, like this is not real. But it was very real. It was very real.
So and again, the audition, were there a lot of people that auditioned for the show?
So there were 6 of us, and we kind of did like a chemistry test. And, you know, each host, you know, we just kind of see how we feed off of each other. And then me and Joelle, they felt our chemistry was the best out of the 6 that they chose. And that's kind of how it went. Chemistry tests are interesting because it's kind of like having, you know, a live audition, but it's with all of these people that, you know, you're competing with in a room. So it's awkward.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's a fascinating show. And that's one of those shows that people will never work. And there's one of those shows that has the potential to be an iconic show that really starts a whole genre of those kind of shows.
I'm really hoping so. You know, we just got a clear Sony and Quibi. Sony owns our show, but the Quibi network, we just got picked up for season 2. So we're very excited about that. And we're crossing our fingers because Quibi submitted us to the review board for Emmys. So there's like an initial group that votes on who gets to get nominations. So we're double crossing our fingers over here.
All right. And Nikki, again, that's the Quibi app. You've probably seen their commercials. They are on all of the time. The one I see is where the guy jumps into the car and he goes, "Why are they chasing us? It doesn't matter. They'll kill us both." You've seen that commercial about 1 million times. So that's Quibi. David, work at any murder hotels before?
You know, sadly, no.
Oh.
But you never know. That the time could happen.
And Mikel, don't give it away, but I'm really curious to know if you found the gun behind that wall that was in that intro.
Ooh, you're gonna have to watch and find out. But I did find a couple of things in the. I found a couple of things. I'm not gonna say what, but
all right,
it's worth watching.
Okay.
Hopefully he found more than Geraldo Rivera did when he opened Al Capone's vault. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's much better than that.
I like to keep all my references in the 1990s for today. So
I like it.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this show up. David, any final thoughts, pearls of wisdom, and give yourself a shameless plug for your agency.
Yeah. We're. I'll just tell you quickly. We're a partner at 3877. We're an architecture and interiors firm in DC. Love working on hotels, restaurants, and single-family residential.
What's your website?
www.3877.design.
Okie-doke.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Mikel, what about yourself?
Thank you.
You can find me on Instagram at Mikel Welch. My name is right there at the bottom of the screen.
Sure is.
Mikel Welch.
All right, beautiful. I like that. A short and sweet pun. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I'd say you really slayed that segment. That's right. You killed it.
And just tell Nicole I love her to death, and now I love you too. So thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
I feel like
Nice to meet you guys.
David, don't worry. I love you, so don't feel left out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, that was fun. That was great. I didn't know where that whole conversation was going to go today, but I think it was great. We got real good practical, advice on designing hotel rooms. I got to complain about stuff I didn't like, and we learned about,
And you can obviously see, like, again, I've interviewed a lot of designers for my show and kind of feel the vibe. It's like I hope to God that me and Mikel one day get to work together on the show. I completely felt like me and him would have incredible chemistry, and we came close a couple of times to getting him on the show, and I don't know why it fell through, but I would love to work with him on the show.
Yeah, excellent. So remember, guys, if you haven't subscribed to our weekly newsletter, do that. Just text the word hotel to 66866. That's hotel to 66866. And again, sorry about how things went yesterday with the hotel reboot. We promise we'll make it up to you and treat you right. I really thank you for giving us some trust and support, and I hope to we could get through this and I'll regain your trust.
Well, listen, sometimes technology gets in your way. Listen, if our internet connection goes down, we lose our show. So I'm sure it'll be great again. And my friend, please go to hospitalitysuccess.com. my company's hospitalitysuccess.com, or go to Facebook at hospitalitysuccess.com. And what's the name of our show now?
No Vacancy Live. So I'm very excited about that. Coming at you live tomorrow from the Garden City Hotel. That's right. Anthony and I are actually going out of our home studios, and we're going to be possibly in different parts of the hotel. We haven't quite figured that part out yet, but we will have it figured out before we go on air tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun.
We can be in different parts of the room.
Yeah, I don't know. I sent a note.
Well, maybe we can be outside. I sent
a note to Grady saying, "Hey, he's the managing director of the hotel. They set us up in a great suite, but I said this is an opportunity for us to show off some stuff. So we're going to work that out."
You know what? I think I might ask him. I might be more comfortable being outside because I really haven't been inside for a long period of time with anyone. Besides my family.
And they've got that great garden area out there. It's just a matter of, I just have to confirm whether or not they have the robust enough internet connection for us. So I am working on that.
And on a side note, our graphic, No Vacancy Live, I think the live should have a different color.
It should. That was really just the first test run that our graphic designer gave us. So now that we see that, it should be in white and not black.
Well, maybe not white, maybe one of those other colors that you have in the BAC. But I think we need a different color there.
Yep. But hey, we're moving forward.
I love when we have executive staff meetings live. I love it.
I like it too. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And look, we had a big screw up yesterday in my life, but I got it down. You've only got one life, Blaze On. So I'm making the best of it. And Anthony,
thank you so much for checking in.
See you guys tomorrow.